Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar co-hosted by the TNFD, UNDP and Conservation X Labs. We're really delighted to be kicking off this grand challenge on nature intelligence for business. So thanks for joining us. We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, so please do use the Q&A function in the webinar facility so that you can drop any questions you have, and we'll endeavor to answer as many of those as we can. But we've got a great lineup of speakers to share with you the reason why we're launching this, what we're hoping to achieve, and how you can participate. So I hope this proves to be an exciting and engaging session to get everyone's creative, innovative juices flowing, because I think we've got a huge challenge to get every SME, every business in the world thinking about nature in a different way, and this is a really important vehicle for us to do that. So we're going to touch on the why. Why are we doing this? Why now? Why nature? Why SMEs? I'll then hand over to Cassie from Conservation X Labs, who will take us through the details of what we're running and how people can participate. I'm thrilled to have Seema Arora with us from the Chamber of Indian Industries, one of our key partners in a very important market for TNFD, and obviously a market where there's a huge number of SMEs and many fantastic tech innovators. So we're looking forward to getting your perspective, Seema, on the importance of this, and hopefully inspiring many Indian entrepreneurs to enter this challenge. And then we'll break for Q&A, and we've got a great panel of speakers here to answer the questions you might have around process, around timelines, and expectations. So with that, why don't we dive in? I'm going to offer some initial thoughts from a TNFD perspective, then I'll hand over to my colleague Maxine Vergaychik from UNDP's Nature Hub. Maxine has been a long-standing partner of TNFD, and UNDP was one of the founding partners of the TNFD. So we've been working together for many years now, and I'm delighted to have UNDP supporting us on this specific initiative as well. And then really looking forward to having comments from Alex Deegan from Conservation X Labs. Alex and I saw each other last week, and we're both super excited to be kicking off the challenge today. So Alex will give us his perspective from running X Prizes and global challenges around the world related to conservation and restoration of nature, and then Cassie's going to take us through some of the details. So with that, maybe I can just offer a couple of thoughts from the TNFD perspective. As some of you know, the Taskforce on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures was set up in 2021, and our mission and our mandate was to get businesses around the world and across sectors thinking and acting on their nature-related issues. Obviously, part of that is about formal reporting, corporate reporting and disclosure requirements. And we've delivered a set of recommendations around corporate reporting. But the much bigger challenge is to get all businesses everywhere, from family-owned businesses, but from family-owned farms to small distribution businesses, all the way through to the world's biggest corporations and financial institutions thinking about nature in a different way. So before we even get to disclosures, we have to change the mindset. We have to give people a set of assessment tools and generate decision-useful information, because ultimately what we want to see is a shift in the flow of capital to nature-positive outcomes. And hopefully, as you all know, the state of the planet, climate change, nature loss, both of them are accelerating. And so this is an urgent challenge. And if left unaddressed, it's just going to present more risks to business everywhere around the world, in all countries, in all sectors, and businesses of all sizes. And so we recognized very early on in our journey at TNFD that this wasn't just about getting big companies to do things differently and to think differently about nature. We need to get all businesses everywhere thinking about nature differently. And so many companies and financial institutions historically have thought about nature as a corporate social responsibility issue, something that they can do something about through volunteer work in their local communities, A lot of companies then started thinking about it as a compliance burden, as something that was sort of an extra cost to the business because governments were expecting information to be reported. But the central point here is that nature is really a driver of risk and value and resilience for businesses everywhere. And of course, the most powerful example that we've all lived through, everyone around the world, was the impact that COVID-19 had on businesses everywhere. And the coronavirus was a tiny speck of nature that derailed the entire global economy for an extended period of time. Millions of small businesses were wiped out, millions of jobs were affected, and of course, millions of people's lives were affected. So it's a very powerful example in the not too recent past of how nature can disrupt the global economy, can disrupt businesses if we don't arrive at a more sustainable relationship with the planet. And that's not just good for the planet, it's also good for the resilience of businesses everywhere. And so that really speaks to the essence of this challenge and why we need to get small to medium-sized businesses and enterprises everywhere thinking and assessing how nature is relevant to their business. So what does that mean? That means understanding impacts and dependencies on nature caused by the company. And then it means understanding the corresponding risks and opportunities to the future financial prospects of each business. So impacts and dependencies on nature leading to risks and opportunities to the organization. And that's true whether it's a global agribusiness company or a global food company, many of the brand name products that we all use, but it's equally true for small businesses right at the farm gate or right at the source of global supply chains. And this is also really important for big companies to make sure that their supply chains are resilient. And so this is a challenge that is shared across supply chains. And one of the things that we're really excited about with this challenge is that many of the big companies TNFD has been working with for the last 4 years are very excited to see us launching this challenge, because this is a way in which they can help their companies through their supply chains better understand the nature-related issues. So this challenge is really about finding solutions, using technology tools to find solutions to enable small to medium-sized enterprises to understand how nature is relevant to their business, how they can lower their negative impacts on nature, how they can make their business more resilient in the face of accelerating nature loss, and how they can potentially find new opportunities by working with nature and unlocking new sources of value for their business. So we're really excited to be launching this. We fully understand that for most small to medium-sized enterprises, they don't have in-house expertise on ecology or biology or nature-related issues. They don't have the budget to buy data and undertake lots of complicated analysis with consultants or other outside experts. And most small business owners don't have a lot of time. They're focused on running their business. So if we think about these constraints of time, tools, and expertise, what we think is potentially transformational here is using technology to provide an assessment of a company's nature-related issues instantaneously or very quickly, and informing the decisions that small to medium-sized business owners and managers need to make. At the TNFD, over the last 4 years, we've developed the assessment approach, the methodology for how to understand nature's relevance to your business. And so this challenge is about automating and using technology to speed up the use of that methodology called the LEAP approach. So Cassie's going to take us through a bit more detail about that in a minute. But hopefully that sets the context for why we're doing this, why we're so excited about this. The latest estimates are there are 400 million SMEs in the world, and we need to get all of them thinking about nature in a different way, but not just as a free, endless provider of inputs into their businesses, but as an essential partner, as an essential supply chain partner underpinning the success of their business. So our addressable market for this challenge is really an audience of 400 million SMEs around the world. I think something like 70 million of those SEMA are in India. So hence the reason why we're so glad you're here to give us an Indian perspective. But of course, there are SMEs all around the world underpinning something like 90% of employment and huge percentage of GDP for pretty much every economy in the world. So this is genuinely a global challenge, and we're looking for breakthrough solutions that can make this understanding of nature really easy for companies to undertake. And we're calling that nature intelligence. Every business needs to become nature intelligent. So let me stop there. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Maxine from UNDP to give us UNDP's perspective, and then we'll move on to perspectives from Alex as well. Maxine, over to you.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you. And you really made my job easy, because many of the points that I wanted to cover have been fantastically addressed by you, so I don't need to repeat the value that we kind of embed in this challenge. You mentioned 90% of all businesses, registered businesses, are SMEs, but then they also, I think, provide more than 50% of employment, and that is particularly critical for the emerging economies. And yes, as you mentioned, safe water, sufficient water, productive organic content in soils, pollination, and many other services define the vitality of SMEs more than they define the vitality of huge corporations or the financial sector, because basically SMEs by nature are those organizations that are grounded, and therefore they're grounded not in space, they're grounded in nature. And just a concrete example, maybe to reflect on what you mentioned and the importance of the small and medium enterprises. If you take the cocoa sector in countries such as Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, then essentially you have 60% of world's cocoa coming from a million farmers. These are we call them small and medium enterprises. Essentially, these are people. There's millions of enterprises, and then they have families, and they are the ones who are at the definition of $100 billion industry, and then they're feeding into the chocolate production, confectionery, cosmetics. And so if these companies ignore nature, essentially then you end up with degradation of forests, degradation of the soil productivity, you have water stress. And we've actually seen some of the messages about the cocoa disruption and the potential risks, even in the developed countries, on the potential risks to the chocolate availability in supermarkets. Essentially, this is the kind of things that we're talking about, where nature integration lies at the heart of the development. And yes, you mentioned, and the reason why we believe this challenge actually makes sense is because TNFD has the LEAP approach, and this will be covered. Tony, you mentioned it. So essentially, there's an engine which is out there, which doesn't have, that's not starting from scratch, and it's not to be recreated. A fantastic approach. But now we would like to see how the principles of simplicity and the use of artificial intelligence can broaden the access to LEAP approach, and then make it available exactly to the sectors that we have on our mind, the SMEs. Yes, we are the co-founder. You mentioned we are the co-founder of TNFD, and we've been working with TNFD and partners on capacity building. And this challenge today is a continuation of our collaboration and capacity building for SMEs. Once we have the solution up and running, essential for UNDP will be that our presence in over 140 countries where we work on nature finance, through that presence, we'll be able to support whatever hand-holding might be needed. So hopefully we have this constellation of partners, TNFD with the engine, Conservation X Labs with all the intelligence about the running the challenge, and then the UNDP, which is standing by to help handhold and oversee the process once the application is available. But I'd like to say one final point before passing back to you, Tony, is that we've talked about the role of SMEs in value chains of big corporate value chains, but then also what's important for UNDP, and that's another aspect why we're here, is the fact that in many small islands and many least developed countries, there's a substantial share of informal economy, or economy, some people call it gray economy, where a lot of economic literacy, banking, basic literacy is still needed. And even though this challenge will not address all the points, and in fact, it would be critical for it to address those SMEs which are embedded in value chains. But we are looking to see whether through this challenge we can collect initial ideas to help bring those informal economic sectors in least developed countries, small island development states, bring them one step further to integrate nature. And then the irony is that it's exactly there where they are most dependent on nature, and where abuse of nature, if it is done in a non-intelligent way, is going to be causing trouble, not just for the economies of those countries, but essentially globally, because this is where the coral reefs are, this is where the tropical forests are, etc., etc. So that's the rationale behind our involvement, and we're very much looking forward to this collaboration, and thank all the audience for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing many of you in different capacities joining this initiative. Back to you, Tony.
Thanks so much, Maxime. Now, Alex, we had a chance to chat last week, and I discovered that you've done everything from chief scientist roles in the US government to living in Madagascar in the forest, looking at and studying monkeys. So I can't think of better people to and your team to be guiding us through this journey. But maybe you want to give us some of your perspectives on and lessons learned from running X Prizes and grand challenges like this, and how we're framing this up for the participants.
Absolutely. And it's an honor to be here and an honor to be working with you. First thing, just to make clear, is lemurs are primates, but definitely not monkeys. This is what my team has been taught to learn. I cannot express how excited I am to be able to do this. And the reason for this is I do think this is probably one of the most important things that Conservation X Labs has ever done. And the reason for this is we started Conservation X Labs because, and my co-founder, Dr. Paul Bungie, who was chief scientist at X Prize, myself, who was chief scientist at USAID, was because we recognized that traditional approaches to conservation were inefficient. We need to revolutionize and rethink how we achieve that work. For 60 years, we've been monitoring species, watching their disappearance, writing up their epitaphs as scientific papers, and that is not enough. We need new solvers, new solutions, new approaches, new talent, genius, and creativity to be able to protect the planet. And one of the things we do is think about how we address underlying drivers of extinction. Our mission is to prevent the sixth mass extinction. And I've spent a career building parks around the world. Without understanding the pressures on those parks and how we address them, we will not be successful. So we do a number of different things, one of which is taking revolutionary over evolutionary approaches to how we solve these problems, to match the speed and the scale of the problem, and democratize those technologies and breakthroughs for the last mile. And both those things are really relevant here. We cannot solve the nature crisis without business. And as 50% of GDP depends on nature, and my guess is actually 100 rather than 50%, we understand, as you so eloquently stated, that nature is a driver of risk, a provider of services, as Maxime said, but also a source of innovation, and if we do this right, competitive advantage. And if we can measure it, we can measure that impact on nature, we can improve it. And that is where the democratization of tools in the last mile comes across. And that means being able to create tools that work across geographies, language, economies, everywhere. This is very important for supply chains because we see, and I was talking to someone from Walmart, a large US corporation that has 100,000 suppliers. And that to me is just a staggering number, but this is routinely the case. So understanding supply chains in an increasingly interconnected world allows us to understand the impacts on nature and allows us to minimize that risk and allows us to maximize opportunities. We use this tool. We use two tools. One is fundamentally a tool of open innovation. And open innovation, these are incentive prizes, challenges, just like this one right here, because what we realize is talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. It is an innovation to anyone and everyone with a good idea to help solve hard problems, and recognizing that we have an idea of the destination, but maybe not how to get there. While grand challenges also work to help set ambitious goals among a community, elevate the understanding that we need to solve this problem, build coalitions of the willing to work on hard problems. Challenges weave partnership networks and align stakeholder interests for big wins. They can accelerate the development of a portfolio of solutions. And then finally, they can build the peer support networks and change the reality of what people think is possible. And this is why we're excited about this challenge. The grand challenges at USAID, which I ran, saved millions of lives. They were transformative in how we do it. The DARPA grand challenges gave us things like self-driving cars. These are opportunities for us. These are opportunities for the planet. These are opportunities for nature. And the fact is, for too long, conservation and my sense of conservation has been a stream on the side of the Mississippi. And the Mississippi, our largest river, you could substitute the Amazon River or the Nile, right? That river is the economy. And unless we seek to actually influence that economy and think about making it easier and lowering the barriers for business to be able to be a partner in what we're trying to do to protect nature, we will not be successful at it. Lastly, at CXL, we're in the business ourselves. This is the second half of what we do. We're in the nature intelligence business. We have product teams building tools to improve the effectiveness and efficacy of the collection, management, and synthesis of wildlife and nature data. We know the accessibility and speed and interoperability of nature data. The nature intelligence these tools create can be the material differences on the ground for protected areas, biodiversity, wildlife, and people, from those who live near and in natural areas to big cities. And we think this is one of the best ways that we can actually help those people who live closest to the problem, who bear the greatest burden of protecting nature, who also have the least amount of resources, for us to think about how we bring them in as well. So it's truly an inclusive opportunity as well for our work. And I am so excited to be working with UNDP and with you, Tony, on this.
Great. Thanks so much, Alex. And I'm glad you clarified it was lemurs, not monkeys. And you've just improved my science a little bit too. So thank you. Great. So hopefully that's a really clear call to action. And we would be thrilled if coming through this process and coming out of this challenge, there were young university student entrepreneurs who've had a go at this challenge. There are tech startups, established companies. This is open to everyone, as Alex said. So I'm sure some of you online are entrepreneurs yourselves. Others may be from business associations, and you can help us spread the word to your members and to your networks. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cassie to take us through what it is we're planning to run, the process, the timeline, how people can participate, and then we'll take it from there. So Cassie, over to you to take us through the details.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you all for that introduction on what's driving these institutions' participation and why we're all here today. I just want to say I am going to give a brief flyover of the competition right now. The application is live on the website, nature-intelligence.org. And the Innovator Handbook is also available for download, and you will find all the details there. And so I am going to do a brief introduction, but I also want us to get to this conversation with Seema, which I think is the real value of this webinar. And I hope in the Q&A you can definitely ask questions about the competition, but I'd also encourage you to pick the minds of these people on the webinar, because you may not have access to them in the future, and we're happy to answer any administrative question over the next several weeks while the application is open. So we'll also hold a number of additional webinars to provide additional insights into what we're looking for and clear up any questions. So with no further ado, this global call for solutions that enable small and medium-sized enterprises around the world to better assess and act on their nature issues is open. This is as Tony said, a global call with the objective to increase the uptake and adoption of the TNFD LEAP approach, with the ultimate goal to make businesses more resilient and drive their success and growth and the planetary health of the planet. Application is open and closes on November 24th. In open innovation competitions, we are looking to set broad objectives, and we have a number of these "how might you" questions in innovation that we ask. We are looking for a number of characteristics, ideal types of solutions, and this really is to push all innovators and solution makers to see what's possible. We're kind of asking for the moon, and then we'll see what we get and what we can push forward even after the competition is over. We know that there'll be continued development and investment in all of these solutions. And so the goal really is to help SMEs overcome these constraints on capacity, maybe lack of expertise, some of the circumstances of their operational environments. So really, how can we create tools specifically for them to be able to implement the LEAP approach in a way that makes it actionable and provides outputs that are easily interpretable. So we are, asking how might solutions be more intuitive, ready to use, out of the box, interoperable, and multilingual, require a minimal amount of scientific expertise, but still be reliable and accurate, and provide actionable outputs, easy to adopt and set up, able to operate in remote locations, most likely with mobile devices or other devices that might connect, not in the field, but when they return to areas of more connectivity. And I think a big question at the end is just how can we make the solution affordable and accessible, but also sustainable, and that having a business model that would encourage adoption to, as Tony said, up to millions of organizations and businesses. So next slide. Quickly on the timeline, competition is now open. Application will close on November 24th. 2025. I think the application's about 30 questions. Half of them are just little administrative questions. And we'll go through an application vetting and shortlists up to 8 to 10 challenge finalists over the months of November and December, looking to announce these finalists at the end of January. And then I think what is an interesting part of this competition is we will have a finalist user testing and feedback period through the end of January and February. And the goal is to have these 8 to 10 finalists actually put their solutions in the hands of a selected SME user panel and demonstrate the performance of their solutions, the usability, understand the user experience, and kind of the willingness to adopt and potentially pay for such a solution. And really take the results from that testing period to identify the top 3 winners that we hope to announce in April. So it is an expedited timeline, but we also hope as digital solutions that that there'll be an opportunity to create on this kind of timeline. Next slide. We have a $100,000 prize purse with the goal to provide a $5,000 stipend to the challenge finalists to support the user testing period and any other solution development that might help it happen during then. And then for those 3 winners identified through the performance and testing period, we can offer a $20,000 grant for additional solution development. And I think the real gravy and what we really see as the real prize of this competition is the continued collaboration with TNFD, UNDP, and Conservation X Labs to, continue to invest, continue to invest in the most promising 3 solutions, see it really as a recognition and a type of endorsement of these types of solutions, and that will continue to want to encourage their deployment and access to all the partners and businesses that these organizations work with. So it really is will be a critical partnership opportunity and market access opportunity by demonstrating the potential of your solution through this competition. Let's see, and then high flyover of the evaluation criteria, which has detailed in the handbook. Design will be a critical piece, like really how do you meet the needs and constraints of SME users, being 30% of the evaluation weight. The accuracy and reliability of the solution, especially in automating the LEAP approach for SMEs, is 20% of the evaluation criteria. The innovation and differentiation of the solution. How does, what novel aspects or creative aspects, transformative aspects of your solution are brought to the table. The scalability and applicability, the ability, so that means kind of the ability of your solution to be adapted and scaled across different geographies, markets, and value chains. The financial sustainability and business model, how can you create and deliver value to customers while with the ability to also raise additional funds, be it grant or investment capital. And lastly, the feasibility of the solution and the team to implement it, mostly making sure that it's technically sound and environmentally and socially responsible in legal and political frameworks. And just to wrap up, because I think we want to hear from everyone else, we are trying to leave this as open as possible. So, anyone over 18 individuals can apply, but also organizations, businesses, universities, associations. The one restriction is that governments at any level are not eligible. But otherwise, we're looking for any innovation or solution that's at least a proof of concept level, with proof of concept at the application deadline, and then the need to have a prototype that you can put in the hands of the SME user panel at the end of January. So those are the main restrictions on eligibility. Of course, there are other few things in the weeds and in the details, but we are trying to leave this as open as possible. Feel free to reach out with questions at the end here or via email. And we hope as many of you will apply as possible. Thank you so much. Back to you,
Thank you very much, Cassie. Yep, and I can see some questions coming through, so we'll come back to those in a couple of minutes. And please, if you do have additional questions, let us know, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a business association or a network node and can help us communicate this to entrepreneurs in your networks. I'm happy to answer them now. Before we do that, let's turn to Seema. Seema, we had the great fortune of being together in India a few weeks ago, where I certainly felt a lot of energy and excitement in India generally, and specifically a lot of interest in solutions around sustainability. So I wanted to get your perspectives. We actually sat down with some Indian companies that are developing some next generation technology tools to help them understand issues through their supply chains. These are large Indian companies, obviously with very complex supply chains. But I welcome your thoughts, Seema, about your sense of the importance of this. Obviously, as I said, there's millions of SMEs in India that we need to get engaged in thinking about nature as a driver of resilience for their business. So how are you at CII engaging with big companies and small companies through supply chains, and what sort of early signs are you seeing around the use of technology to address some of those challenges?
Thank you, and thank you, Tony, and thank you to everyone. And first of all, many congratulations on launching this very, very important grand challenge. I think it's at the right time. Tony, you mentioned that India, how are we looking at this whole piece? And as CII also, Large Industry Association, CII, just for those who might not know, with over 10,000 direct members, more than 45% from the SME sector, and we have 80 offices in the country. Indirectly, we reach out to almost 1.2 million companies if we look at the different sectoral associations, so very large. Now, basically, sustainability and specifically looking at nature issues, we started this almost 10, 11 years ago, the work on nature. We started a specific India Business Biodiversity Initiative, and with the objective of building a business case for companies to take action on nature and biodiversity. As Tony, you mentioned in your opening remarks, generally companies would look at it as CSR or something that is a regulatory thing they have to do. But our whole idea was that they should look at it from a business lens. That why is it important for me? So therefore, we have almost 100 top companies as members. And when we say 100 top companies, also their supply chains, because these are complex companies and their supply chains are complex. We also have MSMEs as part of this, but many more are larger companies and through their supply chain. We have seen a real interest building over a period of time. Initially, it was not there, but now we see that they have understood the reason. First of all, I think there are many more risks, which is why they have begun to understand, right? There are many more risks now that they understand, the large companies. When we talk of SMEs, it's a little different, but large companies understand that nature is the bedrock, because a lot of them have started to understand that they are dependent on the ecosystem services. So the dependencies and the impacts are beginning to make sense for the large companies. It's not uniform, but large companies are beginning to understand, especially the ones who have agri value chains or who have food, pharma, etc., and cosmetic, they understand it faster. But even the metallurgy or the mineral sector understands it. Now, the way we are seeing the uptake is they are actually very, 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 very interested in seeing how they can implement, the methodologies like LEAP under TNFD, because they see that as a very useful tool. Now, the challenge comes, and this is where your grand challenge will bring the solution, comes when they are looking for specific methodologies. And that's where I think this is a very, very good, idea to have these kind of, solutions being brought up. I just want to take a minute and say the SME challenge is even more difficult because the understanding gap is very large. So one is the understanding gap. The second is their ability to access these solutions. So I think doing this challenge is very important because you are actually democratizing the ability of an SME. You're making that available, that access. And I think that's very, very useful as well. And I think as India grows, these vulnerabilities for India, for the SME sector are only going to grow. We have to remain competitive. We are, the 8th in the biodiversity, one of the, hotspots of biodiversity. And we also have a large population. So all of these things are very important for us as the country, and business, as was mentioned by Alex also, has to find the solutions. They will drive it. And that's why we in CI believe that this is a very important initiative.
Fantastic. And obviously in India, your top 1,000 companies now have mandatory reporting requirements, your BRSR reporting framework, as it's known. That's obviously going to drive a requirement for big companies to get information from their supply chain partners upstream, many of whom will eventually be very small businesses right at the farm gate or producing primary products. How are you seeing that driver of change and that information flow starting to generate a demand for technology solutions across supply chains? Because I think that will be an important source of lessons to be learned for innovators who want to have a go at this challenge about what information needs to flow through the different supply chains.
Yes, Tony. Multiple sets of informations are required now. Of course, the disclosure requirement, the business sustainability reporting requirement, BRSR, is requiring companies to report supply chain performance. And therefore, they need to track, they need to understand the usage of various natural resources, right? And what is the impact as well as the dependency. So, tools which will help them track that will be very much high in demand. And I see that. The other is the whole unlocking of the entire agriculture sector, nature-based sector for building resilience for India, right? And I think that itself will also demand a lot of tools and lot of, methodologies where we can measure and we can create the business case and we can simplify how companies and the SMEs can actually understand this and start to measure, monetize, track, and report on these, and be able to then access solutions as well. So that should be the ultimate thing. So we see a lot of demand coming. For example, I mean, large companies are already looking at a big shipping company is looking at using AI-based systems in their ports, and they are saying that how do we use next generation technologies for enhancing efficiency in business decision making. For example, an action plan is being developed for avoiding conflicts with sea turtle breeding periods by adjusting shipment schedules, minimizing environmental impacts. Now, they need all these solutions. They're looking at AI. And I must say that the Indian AI mission, we have a very large mission in India on AI, which is building a Indian AI dataset platform. What that does is it actually brings together all the data sets from all the government departments, and over a period of time, this will be made available. Of course, there will be certain requirements, certain things which will be personal information will not be made available, but more information around what the companies may need to access in terms of natural resource information, weather patterns, etc., will be made available. And if we build the tools, the grand challenge, when we are building these solutions and tools, it can actually integrate into these digital platforms that the government is building and make this available to a wide number of SMEs. And even the informal sector that was being talked about by the gentleman from UNDP, Maxim, yeah. So I think there's a huge opportunity here.
Fantastic. Great. Well, we might come back to you in a minute, Seema, but let's start working our way through some questions which are coming through. I might start with the question to you, Alex or Cassie. It's from Natalia, and it's about what will happen to the intellectual property of the solutions that are developed. So maybe you can speak to sort of how we're going to run the challenge and who owns the intellectual property from the solutions, just to clarify that.
Yes. All intellectual property will be retained with the applicant, the whatever individual or organization. We understand we're offering a minimal prize purse. We can't ask for a stake in for your IP or ask even for a license to that end. And we also think that leaving the IP with the innovator will most enable them to be able to take it to market and develop their business case. So given the size of the prize purse and where we are, all IP remains vested with the applicant and entrepreneur.
Great. Thanks, Cassie. There's another question here about, is this just for entrepreneurs and sort of who can apply? I think you've clarified that it could be a small business, it could be an established technology company, it could be a group of university students who want to have a go. Is there anything more that you wanted to offer around who can apply and who can't apply?
Other than that governments are not eligible, we're trying to leave the applicant pool as broad and wide as possible.
Yeah.
Obviously, some groups may have been, working and developing in these areas. But I should say, like, the team aspect is part of the criteria, but a small part. And we're really looking for well-designed solutions. And that being said, I know someone also commented on the quick turnaround. I still think within this time frame, there's the ability to really demonstrate the potential of your solution. So, the way the challenge statement and overarching kind of how might we questions, this is like kind of our wish list. And we know that it's probably ambitious and overly ambitious. And I know some people are asking, we only work on the locate and evaluate part of nature assessments. And I'd still encourage you to apply because we recognize these are solutions in development, and we're looking for those that are really promising and who we can help continue to develop. So just know that that's our goal, and understand that there are these constraints on time.
Yeah, I might just add to that, Cassie, because I think this does get to the question about is it all phases of LEAP or some phases of the LEAP approach? For those who are less familiar with LEAP is a 4-phased assessment approach. L for locate your impacts and your interface. Sorry, locate your interface with nature. E for evaluate your impacts and dependencies on nature. A for assessing your risks and opportunities to your business stemming from your the impacts and dependencies you understand, and P is preparing to take action. So ideally, we'd love solutions that can both help companies understand what their specific issues are in each of the locations they operate, because our starting premise is nature issues are location specific. And so some sort of geospatial analysis are helping companies to understand, well, if I have an operation here, or if I have a supply chain partner here, these are likely to be the issues in that ecosystem. That would help with the locate and the evaluate phase. But we then want to sort of help small businesses understand, well, what might be the risks to their business, including transition risks or physical risks to their assets, both now and potentially in the near and medium term future. But then also potentially, if we can push it this far, what practical things could that company do? What actions could it take, either to minimize its impacts if they're negative, find opportunities to create positive impacts with nature, but also respond to their risk and opportunities. So we are looking across the phases of LEAP. But if we reflect on how companies have used the LEAP approach over the last 3 or 4 years, a lot of companies have found the most difficult phases of LEAP to be the L and the E phase, because it's the most unfamiliar to them as a business owner. Lots of business owners, of course, are very familiar with trying to understand risks to their business and commercial opportunities, but it's understanding the science about ecosystems and what's happening in particular locations that I think most people have found difficult. So to answer that question from you, Claire, I think we would certainly encourage you to apply if you've already got something that's addressing L and E. But through this challenge, maybe if you can push further and see, well, can we help a company derive some insights or make some suggestions about what they could actually do about those issues, then you'd be getting closer to the P phase of LEAP as well. So I think there's been a few questions around that. There's also a few questions around, if we already have developed something, can we put it into the challenge? As Cassie said, we want this to be as open as possible. So I think the answer to that would be yes, but we will obviously be looking for solutions that can deliver as much impact against the LEAP approach as possible. So if it's, say, sector specific, and I saw a question around we do cocoa and a couple of other sectors or value chains. If it's value chain specific, or it's only works in one particular geography, obviously we're looking for solutions that are global, that can work across sectors and across geographies. So if you do have something that works in one place, we'd really encourage you to use this process to see if you can push your product to look across other geographies and across other sectors or supply chains.
And Tony,
great.
could I
please, Kathy,
just mention that we do have the intention of identifying these, 8 to 10 challenge finalists, because we recognize that there may be unique aspects to a lot of different solutions, and so want to have like a portfolio and kind of provide this opportunity to a lot of different either companies, solutions, people who may have a solution that's been targeted on a specific area. So we do kind of want to give this opportunity, the testing opportunity, to a portfolio of solutions. And while there will be 3 winners, it may be like a portfolio of solutions that we want to continue to support. So I think even if you don't check all the boxes, as Tony said, that it would be worth it to apply.
Yeah, and there's a question related to that about, well, what happens at the end of the challenge? What support are we offering to provide? I think the first thing is we can provide a global platform to celebrate the solutions that we think are the best ones coming out of this challenge process. The second thing is by giving you a platform and profile, we can also potentially help introduce you to global partners or funders downstream who might be interested in funding you to take this from a prototype stage to commercial application, or to disseminate it globally to an audience. So we're open to a range of different business models. I think the key thing here is that if our assumption is this is for SMEs who have limited time, limited expertise, and very limited budget to be spending on these type of tools, what's a model in which we can try and provide them with a very fast assessment at very small cost, but of course to you, the innovator, how can you get compensated for the innovation that you come up with? And I think there are a number of different models and ways in which the innovators here could be compensated for the solution that they come up with. So our job will be to celebrate these models and shine a spotlight on the most successful ones. And then through the TNFD's platform and our convening power and our relationships with Conservation X Labs and UNDP, we'll then help to see if we can create connections that might take these ideas into broader adoption.
Tony, maybe I can just add that from UNDP perspective, we will be happy to connect applicants to our country offices who have nature finance programs. And regardless of where an applicant ends, whether it's a winner or it's just a part of the process, I think there's a potential that connectivity could be of value. So, and once the product is out, we will also work through UNDP. We'll do our best to basically take it to the maximum exposure. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Maxime. And there's an important question here from Murat, who asked, are you expecting this solution to align with other disclosure requirements? This is good, Murat, because I want to be really clear that the solution we're looking for is not specifically about meeting disclosure requirements. It's not about companies that might have to report under regulations such as ESRS in Europe or under ISSB standards. Many small to medium-sized enterprises, of course, are too small to have formal reporting requirements. So this is not about preparing them to disclose information under regulation, although some companies might have to. This is about assessment. This is about building the ability for them to understand within their own business how nature is relevant to the business, and also to help them potentially answer questions from their downstream customers. And none of that actually has anything to do with regulation and disclosure requirements. It's about, as I said, nature intelligence, making their business and the business owners smart for the benefit of their own business about how nature is relevant to their business, and positioning them to then answer questions from their supply chain customers, because we know that big customers at the end of the supply chain are going to be asking for more and more information in the future about these issues. And that, again, that has nothing to do with regulation. That has to do with your relationship as a small business with your downstream customers who are increasingly concerned and interested in these issues. So while the assessment approach might inform various different use cases, including disclosure, it's not about disclosure requirements and GRI and ESRS and ISSB reporting requirements per se. I hope that's helpful. There was also a question here around data sources to point to. In the TNFD LEAP guidance, which you'll see, and we've posted a link to the chat, we already signpost to a number of data sources that we recommend companies can use. Now, they're not the only data sources, and clearly if you're operating in a particular country or sector, there might be other data sources that are better to use. But what we have found from the last few years, when people use the LEAP guidance, they're using those data source references as places to go and get data for the different stages of LEAP. And so for you as innovators in this challenge, that would be a good place to start. But of course, if you find different data sources or other ways to collect and curate data and bring it into your solution, that's also perfectly fine as well. But as a starting point, you might want to use the data sources that the TNFD has signposted to in its guidance. So I think that covers off most of the questions. I'm not sure, Cassie, if you're seeing anything else you wanted to respond to in the last minute or two. But otherwise, I think you're welcome to follow up with us online. I think the link to the form and the website is there. So I'm not sure, again, Cassie, if you've got anything else you wanted to close with, but otherwise, I think we can wrap it up here and very much look forward to this spreading around the world. If you're working for a business association or an entrepreneurship network, please do send this on to your network and encourage entrepreneurs to enter the challenge. We'd love to see people from all around the world having a go at this. And we will be here to support that process, including doing some information briefings on the LEAP approach and things so that it's very clear what the methodology is against which we're looking for people to develop solutions. So with that, I think maybe we can finish there. We've got 3 minutes to the top of the hour, but thank you everyone for joining. Thank you also to our panelists, Maxime, Alex, Seema and Cassie, and we look forward to following up with all of you in the next couple of weeks. Thanks very much.